Mini Pro models, and that's because they're the ones that actually do the live streaming. It supports both Android and Apple phones. You pretty much just plug the phone into the USB connection on the Atem Mini and it works. The Atem Mini Pro will automatically recognize the phone when it's plugged in. There's no settings. You just plug in the phone and it works. So let me show you how this works. Now, the Atem Mini Pro here is set up to live stream to YouTube. And on the rear monitor, I've got the web browser with the YouTube display in it, so it's live streaming through. Now, the Atem Mini Pro here is connected to the internet via its Ethernet connection. One thing that's really important also to know about before we do this is you have to activate the tethering on your phone to actually make this work. So I've got a phone here. It's got the tethering enabled, which is the phone here, and I've got a USB cable. So I'll plug the phone in. There it is there. And I'll plug in the other end into the USB port on the back of the Atem Mini. So what will happen is, I'm not sure you can get an overhead shot of that, but there it is, the little tethering icons come up. It's a bit different. I've got an older phone, so this phone's a newer one, so it's got a slightly different indicator. Yeah. Now, the Atem Mini can see the phone, and if you look on the multi-view, you can see there's a little phone icons appeared on the streaming status view. So what we do now is we'll unplug the Ethernet and see how it switches across. So if I unplug the Ethernet, you'll see the icon on the multi-view is actually grey. So I've unplugged the Ethernet here, and what you'll see is it'll switch across. Now, you can see the icon's gone red and it's flashed the on-air indicator, and that shows that it's now switched over and it's live streaming. And you see there's a little bit of an interruption to the live stream, but it's done a clean switch over, and now it's running with the phone data and not the Ethernet, because the Ethernet's not even plugged in. So let's switch back. So we'll plug the Ethernet back in, and we'll unplug the phone. And you'll see that I'll straighten myself up here a little bit. So the overhead camera looks great. And you'll see now it'll switch back. The phone icon's disappeared.
One, two.
From the
1, 2.
status.
There we go. Oh.
And it's gone back and it's switched across.
Now.
Streaming back on the
super echoey, but
it also does something that computers don't do very well.
Okay, hold on.
When you restore it, basically that's changed.
There's the office. How come I don't hear him anymore?
You can switch it backwards and forwards. So if you have an Ethernet problem, you can plug your phone in.
Hold on.
But a lot of times, software applications actually need to be quit and relaunched, because they'll actually
get back to it.
One of the services, and they don't really switch across. But
I don't know why I can't hear it.
Switch live, even while you're streaming, and you just saw how it did that.
I don't know how to check the stream off
we've got
of
full control. It runs Blackmagic OS. So
here, hold on. Let's move this.
The whole process of how we connect. And another thing I think it's really also important to think about with this phone tethering stuff is the mobile data speed. You know, phones can vary a lot in data rate. I mean, every internet connection can do that. Also, the data rate will go up with frame rate. So there's a lot of things to consider. Also, 5G phones are faster than 4G phones. So if there's not enough speed to do the live stream through your phone, there are some options. You can switch to a lower volume. You can also switch to lower frame rate. And so lower frame rates are okay, of course, because all the inputs will just convert. So even if you're running 1080p 60 and you wanted to say stream at 24p because the data rate is too much at 60p, you can switch the switcher over to 24p.
I can't hear what he's saying.
All the inputs will just convert and it'll just work.
I don't really hear what he's saying.
So I think this mobile data will be really helpful to people. It's actually in a new
software
update. It's called Atem Update.
I know.
And it'll be available on our website today. We'll post that. It supports mobile data on Atem Mini Pro and the Atem Mini Pro ISO models, because they're the ones that are
okay. So he's still talking.
And also, it'll be available free of charge. So you just got to download the update.
And you can hear us.
Okay, so
you can hear us. Yay!
The Atem Mini family as a whole. Yeah, the Atem Mini's been really well.
And we sound terrible. Hold on.
It's got a lot of professional features, and these are not dumbed down switches, but they're true professional switches.
Yeah, but they can't
important work,
see.
even though
I know. I'm trying to get the picture. As he's talking about the
ways we never expected, which has been quite a lot of fun to see.
Atem Mini.
Some remarkable.
I'm trying to get mine to work.
So we thought, really, how far could we push this design? You know, we wanted to try and we were sort of thinking, could we build a really powerful model?
Because they'll be watching
how far
us,
can we take it? Like, really, how far can we push this? You know, can we build a home switcher?
So there's you at least.
He has a broadcast.
We weren't really sure it was possible. You know, we've been working on this for a while, but it was a challenge we kind of set ourselves. You know, there's a bunch of challenges. Could we make it affordable enough? You know, could we keep the advanced electronics cool without fan noise, which is really important because often these switches are used in the same environment with the cameras. So
I thought I turned off the
fan noise being picked up.
Oh, I'm
was
an
it
idiot.
even really possible to fit a big switcher into an Atem Mini design? So, well, not fit exactly.
Oh, no.
It has grown a little bit in size.
That
But,
yellow thing is
We've been able to do it.
crooked.
We've pulled it off.
There
And
we go.
new model is called Atem Mini Extreme. It's dramatically more powerful. I'll bring one out and show you.
Nice and
I've
crooked.
got one here. So here it is. It's quite big, as you can see. It's a much bigger switcher. You'll see the
I don't
size
want to be
difference there.
the rude guy, but it's
You can
backwards.
see it's got a much bigger control panel.
I don't know if I can
A
fix
lot
that.
more controls. It's a monster, this thing. So if you're looking for a more powerful Atem Mini, then this is it. We've really gone for it.
And they can
So
hear.
actually, I'll
Yeah.
start by showing you the back. Let me,
Yeah.
Or they
I'll
can
move the
hear
phone out
you.
of the
No,
way.
they can hear you. They can hear both of us
It's a
because
little
it's
bit
off of the.
view. I don't know if you can get a close up of that there. So there's a lot more
Okay,
connections
so how come my
on the
speakers
back.
aren't working?
So you can see that it's got the 12-volt DC input. Now it
It's a
includes a bigger
Windows
power
thing.
supply.
Dude, I hate
because,
Windows so
it uses
much.
more
Hate
power.
it.
You have to
There's
turn
gigabit
off your
Ethernet built
headphones
in.
and say
We're going to be able to use it
go
for a
through
few things in the
speakers.
future as well. So it's got tons of fast Ethernet. It's got the streaming built in, so it's a bit
Unless
like the
is it
Atem
trying
Pro.
to put the audio
models, the
through
bigger
the
version of Atem Mini Pros in
HDMI
some
by
ways.
default into the
So you don't need any
computer.
external streaming software because that's built
Right
in.
into the
It
screen.
supports YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Vimeo, and more.
Sometimes
like
it
the
does.
Atem Mini Pro models do. But it now has 2 USB connections. So this is
And
important
this
if
is
you
a
wanna-
live stream, so we
maybe you
can't
want to use a
even just
webcam,
cut this
or you're
apart
recording to a USB
out.
disc at the same time. Or
Good thing is just talking about the
recording
ATM
while you're
stuff that we
live
don't care
streaming
about,
on your
right?
phone, because it supports a lot, the phone tethering as well as the Atem
Yeah.
Mini Pro now
It's
does.
quite embarrassing,
Of
but
course, you can still
I
connect
don't
the
know
USB
anything
hub,
about it.
see if you want more devices, but I think it's really nice having 2 USB connections built in. Much simpler.
It's just a
Now it's a HD
switchboard,
switcher,
right?
so all the HDMI
Yeah, so this
connections
is
support
an
up to
ATM
1080p
Mini
60.
Extreme, so
And
it's
it
just
has
a
2 independent
much
HDMI
bigger.
outputs. Now these work like aux outputs,
Switcher?
so you can
Good.
route different video sources to them. And this
Which is
model has
pretty
8 inputs as well. Obviously, it's
The
close
only
number of inputs.
switchers I've
So more
ever
inputs means you
used
can use more cameras, and that's really nice if you're using like if you can't afford camera operators and you want to just use more camera angles, so you can just add more cameras.
Yeah, the ATM stuff is
Now
actually
each input has a separate
pretty
standards
amazing.
converter, so you can have 8 different video standards plugged in. You just plug everything in and it works. The microphones are the same microphones work. There's now an additional
Everything
headphone
was
output, and the headphones are proper monitoring
S-video.
output, so it's on a separate
Yeah.
audio monitoring bus.
Okay,
So let's check out the front again,
we're almost there. We
We'll
just
do
need to be able to
plug
hear
it
what he's
in,
saying for us.
which is a bit of an ordeal with so many connections. Now I've got
Maybe-
8 hyperdecks that we're using as sources here. So let me just plug in. I'll actually
I
set
mean,
it on top.
you can put your headphones on, right?
Away.
Let me see if I can hear.
Because I can just pull up the stream on my phone
On the
and
network.
listen to my headphones.
Open the video
Might work.
output. I'll go through the inputs because there's quite a lot of inputs here. So, sorry, it takes a moment because there's so much.
That kind of works, kind of.
It's the problem with the bigger switcher. It's got so many connections.
Throw on your headphones
My
and see,
Pro.
and then let me see if I can I scoot that way?
Because we've got a camera.
Make room.
No
A
way.
bunch of extra inputs.
Man, it
because
just
of,
it sounds
a
bad.
number of sources. We've got an extra output, which we'll plug in because it's got 2 video outs. And I got 4 more inputs. So we've got quite a lot of cables. So these are all hyperdecks playing back these different camera angles of a cooking show. Camera
Just
one is
depends
actually
on,
the pocket camera just over there.
How
There
you feel like
So
it's
we've got everything plugged
pretty
in.
close on par as far as,
Good. And a little nice and straight to that overhead camera.
or are we
pretty
way
good.
behind?
So
I
one of
don't
the
know.
first things you can see now, I've plugged in the multi-view,
That's
plugged
one
well
too.
both video outputs and all
Here's-
inputs. You can see the multi-view is a little different, so I'll get into that in a moment. But let's have a look around the
There's
front
a
panel and
half
see
a
what's on
second
there.
behind.
So we've got it
Well,
now
we'll
running
pretend
with all
like
8
it's
inputs connected, so I can just switch between
This was just
all those sources.
for funsies, so we tried.
There it is.
We tried it.
And also there's a small
idea
source
2
button over
seconds
here,
ago.
so you've got like 2 media players and a few more things there. You can
Well,
still
get in
change
here
between
so I
cut and
can see
auto,
it.
so you can still do the transitions.
So
just like you
the
can
ATM
with the
stuff,
Atem Mini.
we're pretty
Of course,
loud.
auto is
The
still an
ATM
industry
stuff
standard
is
way
really
of
cool. I
selecting a
mean,
transition
everyone's
versus
using
a
it
cut.
obviously for live streaming.
Any
This
Atem
kind of
customer
stuff.
will already know that. Now it's got the same transition duration buttons, so it's half a second to 2 seconds, and they're located as the durations of the transitions. And they've also got a fade to black control here, so it still has that. So it looks very similar to an Atem Mini.
But the real question
Now
is,
the
are we
transition
focused?
selection is located
Maybe.
above the auto button over here, and we've got more of those. So you can set to different
Let's
things.
see,
So like, for
slide that
example, at the moment
camera
it's set to mix.
This way,
So when you do a
can be, like,
transition,
looking
it'll be a mix.
at our.
But you can also do other things.
I was
like
just gonna look
dip,
at
for
this one.
example.
Well, that one works too, but
There it is. And you've got like 6 wipes on there. There's more buttons for different
sure.
transitions. So you've got 6 wipes, and including horizontal, vertical, diagonal, circle, and square wipes. There's also
Lots of
DVE
cool wipes.
transitions. So if you can select some of those DVE transitions and
What are we
See
making? A
those.
Star Wars
See
movie?
that there.
Right? No, I mean, it's cool.
And the
but
DVE transitions
actually,
on the buttons
This
directly
is the stuff we did in
include
high
push
school.
right, squeeze right, push down,
we
squeeze
did
down.
the announcements
and,
for video.
I think
every
technically,
morning.
they call these.
So you
they're
can see
switchers,
that, you
but
know,
they're
you've got
mixers.
a few more transitions
They're
over
video
there.
mixers. When you
So
start
there's also
throwing all the-
upgraded video output controls
So I used to do
because we've got
time
more
broadcast
sources
stuff
now.
back in
So the
day. I never
HDMI
liked
video
it, so I never-
outputs are actually like
So my
aux
wife,
outputs.
so Lori,
So you can route videos
she was a
So output
TD, she was a
HDMI 1
director
has
on, for like
settings
ESPN,
on the
that's
control
what we
panel
met.
here,
I was
and so you can see the location of where they are there.
And I asked
Now
the
you can
director,
route
"Don't tell
sources out using the Atem software control, where you get access to both video outs and you can use them both like auxes.
anyone."
But you can view it on the
Actually
front
watch
panel.
my
So let's have a
reaction.
quick
I
look. So
gotta look into.
you know, I'm looking at, in fact, if I can switch
Because
the
we had something
video
similar
across, I
like
can see
this
this.
for the
So that's the
announcements. And we
second
could
video
do
output I've got on the back
live,
there. So I can now
keying
switch the
and
sources
wipes and transitions
between the
and
camera inputs to that video output live.
effects. We did overlays
And you
and
notice,
stuff. But
you
then we
know,
also
it's
had another
basically a clean
system that
feed
we
of the
did
video
live
sources. And it's very,
broadcasts
yeah,
of
the
the
switching's
football
very
games.
clean.
And
Now you can connect this to a video
we had
projector, and one of those inputs
announcers,
could
and
be
it
a
was whole
slideshow. You can
different switcher
switch
board.
to
I
the
don't
video
know if it was a
projector
switcher
from the front here.
or
So
what
it's almost
that
like doing a
was.
separate live
That's
switch.
probably switcher, and
And also
was a
video hub
mixer
control
that we
panels
used for
work. So that's nice.
announcements.
So you've also
It's
got
probably splitting hairs by the
um,
time we start
a
talking about that.
multi-view output.
But the cool thing
So we'll
about
set
the
it back to
ATM
program
stuff, I missed the
because
beginning,
we're actually using it
but
too
at least the
much.
mini and whatnot that takes
So you can see
any
you got a lot of
signal
really nice
and
controls
transfer,
Now it's got the same streaming controls on the top right of the panel there.
which
The same
is,
on and off air controls
Oh, there are
there.
some chats.
You've also got the same
that was just
record and
me.
stop
I just wrote,
controls.
"Oh, look, Paul's
There's
on."
also some
Yay,
extra
hi,
key
Paul.
controls, which we've got over here.
Which
You have
which are we
the
listening
key
to?
one
Just
and
a couple.
downstream
I know, I'm
key
sorry.
controls on there now.
Sorry.
It's nice to have a
We're gonna be
downstream key
quiet
button. So if you're using a
when we
logo
say
or
something
downstream
important.
key, you've got that. Now again,
And
all the
comment on
keys are all
stuff that's
available in the Atem software
important.
control.
'Cause,
So
you
that's
know,
nice.
But why
Now, the
would
other
they
thing we've
wanna
got on the
watch us
front
be
panel is a
quiet?
bunch of macro
Because he's
buttons.
saying
All
something
Atem Mini
good.
models have macros, but the Atem
But
Mini
we're
Extreme
gonna-
He's not
has
saying
6
anything
macro buttons on the
good.
front panel.
'Cause I don't
You can
care.
By pushing one of those buttons. And there they are there.
This is important
It
to
makes them much
broadcast
more
guys, okay?
accessible.
So
You can
just-
set up really complex effects and just trigger them just on one of those.
It actually is
buttons
pretty
there.
cool
Just
because
close up to that. Now the DVEs,
you can do so
the
much
Atem Mini Extreme
for
has 2 DVEs.
so cheap these
So you can
days
do like
with
a
this
2-up
F1.
views
Yeah,
for
what's the
interviewing people.
Price of
There's
this?
front panel buttons
I
with some
guess it's a
presets for you. So you can select some of the
Which is a
DVE
big
buttons, and I've got
Maybe
the
1200.
DVE on there. You can see I've got, that's the 2-up. I've got the different views there. I can select a few of the different ones.
I think
See the
since
other bottom
Paul's
there's the
the
2-up
one
view, and you can see
watching, he
I've
should
got 2
vote
there.
if he wants us to talk.
That's pretty
That's
nice.
right.
Or
Who would
them.
you
And you
rather
also,
listen to,
again,
Paul?
get full control of the DVEs from the Atem software control. But these preset buttons make working with DVEs really fast. So, I'll leave that. I think that's off here. That's off. Now, the other thing we've got
And
is
that's
a
all
select bus.
HDMI.
Yeah.
Powerful switches have what they
Yeah.
call a
Why
select
not
bus on the
SDI?
control panel.
I
Now,
think
what it
I
does,
get,
it
like,
allows you to
HDMI is
control the
more
sources
accessible
into
and, like,
internal processing, such as
more
DVEs.
mainstream.
So let me show you how
but-
this works. So say, for example, something like the
Do they
dip
have a
transition, which
DVE
I'll
or an
select.
SDI out
so
there?
they're really
Now,
big. Yeah, they're really big.
We were
boards
using a
are,
color generator. When we did this before,
which
there's a
becomes
there's a source
part
for that
of,
dip,
like,
and we were using a color generator. That's why it was white.
the
So when we
smaller
did a dip, it
churches
went
or
to, oops, I've
you
got
know,
to select order.
in-house studios.
So when I do a transition, you can
especially
see it was
nowadays
white.
where all their small cameras
Because it was using a color generator, and that color generator is white. But what it allows us to do is we can change the source that we're going to use
Do
for
you
that.
have one?
Now the sources are
I have
along
a
the
small
top
one.
here,
That's what we're using right
so
now.
you can see
And
that,
the cool thing about it is
and the
you can stream
destinations are along the bottom.
at the same time.
So
It's not just a switcher.
Any on the
it acts as a
destinations
webcam.
include
And that's
inputs
the
to keys, DVEs,
creme de la
the
creme
DVE
right
video
there,
sources, the dip source, and a lot more.
which means
So
you
the
don't have
dip
to
is along the
have
bottom here. So let's have a look.
multiple
There it is there.
computers to
So
stream.
that's the dip source. So we select that on the bottom row, and then you can see that it's showing the color generator on the top row.
Shows
I think we
anymore.
probably
Used to
picked that
be
up
you
on the
had to
top
have
camera.
switcher computer,
As you can see that. So we could
Streaming
change it to
computer.
something else. So for example, if we change it to bars,
but now you just
now when I do a
put
transition,
all your cameras and inputs
oops, I
into
changed it to
the
black. There's bars.
switcher, and then it goes
So there
out
you go. So now I
USB-C.
changed the dip source to bars. So you can really see how fast it is to change sources on the front panel itself.
Yeah, Tony
so let's
says,
change
"Let's
something
hear from
else.
the
Let's
camera."
change one of
That's
the
what-
DVEs.
That's what we care
So I'll
about.
turn the 2-up view back
Sorry.
on.
That's what we're talking over the
So let's
ATM
DVE
stuff.
back on,
'cause
so you can see I've got
it's
the
cool,
2-up view
but
of the
we're really good
DVEs.
here at the camera is.
And now you can see I've got those 2 DVEs. So let's change the inputs to those DVEs. So the DVE sources are actually over here. Oops, there they are. DVE1. So now what's really interesting is I've selected DVE1 on the lower row, and you can notice that the top row is now showing that that's the input, one of the camera inputs is going to that DVE. And what's really interesting is that they went red. What this means is the DVE is on air, and it's a warning to show you that anything you change here will be seen by the viewers. So if I turn
So
the
more tally nights tally
the
lights,
DVE
so it's,
on and off, then you can see the color changes back to white.
yeah, so it's like
So
standby versus
You
on
can see
there.
it's like a tally on the Slack bus and let you know that if you change anything, people are going to notice it. So I think that's really nice to have that. So let's select color bars.
And the cool thing about the ATM
So you
mini
can see I've
stuff is
got some color bars. I can select some different
it's just like
cameras.
a
The
little
camera
window,
numbers are over here, so I can go through different camera sources and select those
a
into the
little window
DVA.
into
So you can see
their
I've got
more powerful ATM
yeah.
software.
When I
so you
change
can
the input,
actually
the DVA input changes.
get into the
So the
software
select
and pull
bus
your other
makes
stuff on the menu,
this stuff much faster
which allows it to
because you can really
act
route all the sources. It's the same
much
workflows you see on
more
really big
powerfully
switches, but now we have it here
than
right on the front
as
panel.
is.
It's really fast and it's really simple to use. So I'll just turn my
Does
DVs
it
back
have
off
like
again.
arrow bars or something?
Now the other thing we've got in Atem
Like
Mini
the one
Extreme is
we
camera
used to use
control
had
right
like
on the front
a
panel. The
joystick.
buttons are located just above the inputs.
Move
So
your
it allows really quick
overlays and
camera
stuff.
adjustments.
all
So
that
if I
kind of
cut the
stuff is
camera
gonna be-
one,
if you're doing serious
we
stuff
have
like that,
a
then you hook up your
Pocket
laptop.
Cinema Camera 6K connected to input number 1. So I
And
can
you
cut
do
to
it
input
via
number
the
1,
laptop.
which is just here. Now this camera has studio features,
to
including
use
lens
OBS
control, tally, and a
or
color corrector.
No
So
YouTube
we can control that
well,
from
yeah,
the
you
switcher.
have to use some
So
software.
if I
that's
go
not
between
yet.
camera,
Yeah,
I can
so
get
you
a
gotta
close up
have
of the
YouTube or
screen on
Facebook
the
or
back.
something
You can see as I'm
that's your
switching to the
streaming
camera
service.
and back again,
Oh,
I've
cool.
got the
Hook up
tally
your
light coming
tally
on and
to
off on the LCD on the back. Now iris
Wait,
is
was
the
that a
default
teaser
control.
on
So
your
you'll
camera?
notice here we've got up and down arrows. So if I start adjusting those,
And
you
if
can see I'm
control-
now adjusting
okay, cool.
the iris. And that's the most common
Yeah.
control you need,
Via
which is iris. Because
HDMI?
if you're using
paint- it's called
outside,
painting the
you're
camera
doing
as well. I
outdoor
guess it's not
shooting,
really painting
the
camera,
lighting
changing
conditions can
the-
change.
Well, maybe it is.
So you can track
Anyway.
those lighting conditions. So
Yeah, so
you see
from the
there I'm
switcher you
changing
control
the iris.
so everything matches.
But there's also other camera settings you can control as
yeah,
well.
via HDMI.
So you just need to select the override buttons. And those 4 buttons
I don't
above
know
here,
how to do that
you'll
with-
see that
All right, he's about to
See
show
my
the
other
camera
camera,
again,
there's
and I'm
the-
going to tell you if
all
it's...
the arrows
is it
here for
teeth?
the iris. But these 4 buttons will override those up and down buttons. And you
He's
can
got
say,
like
for example,
Betamax
you
and
can press
stuff in the back.
gain,
That's awesome.
that's black, and then we can adjust that setting. Oops, there it is there. You got to be fairly quick. So now there's buttons
I don't know
for
what I'm doing.
overriding
I'm just
the
pushing buttons.
levels for shutter speed, black, level, and focus.
Black level.
The focus one's actually quite interesting
Focus.
because if you I'll show you basically how this works. If we just focus
Autofocus?
and really make the camera go out of focus.
Oh no, he's doing okay. It's a manual.
There it is there. So I've adjusted
It's
that
by
camera way
wire.
out of focus. Now what you can do is you can press and hold the focus button to trigger the autofocus in the camera.
Show us
So I
the
just press
camera.
He
it.
says you can
See, now
click
it'll
and
trigger
hold
the
it to
autofocus
trigger the
in the camera.
autofocus.
So it's a really great way of really fast
Oh, was that a
using the camera's
tease to like
features
real
itself to do
autofocus?
focus. Now the camera control is
think
really
it
simple,
was.
but it's
Maybe.
not
Here's
really
the-
powerful.
This has always had
You have
autofocus.
full camera
it's just
control,
been
obviously, in the Atem software
Well,
control,
not
but it's
auto.
quite
So it's
useful to have
contrast.
all this on the front panel.
It'll basically
And of
just
course, you can
whatever's
also
in
use one of the
front
Atem
screen.
camera control panels,
Right.
if you really want to go for it. Now the audio controls is another
Audio
set of features
controls.
on the front panel. They're very similar to the other Atem Mini models. They're located above the inputs along here. With more
But the
inputs, we
camera,
still
whatever
have
the
the full
camera
audio
is
processing on
no
all the
pocket.
inputs.
That's what he
So
said.
each
nothing
input has audio
new
processing
about
for
what
like
they should
it has a
No, he
compressor,
said 6K.
6-band parametric EQ, limiter, expander, and more. That's on all the inputs. And there's also now what's been added is headphone controls for the headphone output, and they've been added on the panel here. So you've got level up and down. You can set the levels up and down. You've also got a mute and a
Headphones.
reset as well. So that's nice for headphone
I think
control
I'm like-
right from there.
1 or 2 seconds
Now,
ahead of you.
Even though that's the front
Got it.
panel, we haven't really described what's
That's
inside
gotta be
yet. Up until
frustrating
now, we've really
watching
only
it
talked about the
different
front
things.
panel controls. But the really big increase in power in this switcher is the internally. So what I'll do is I'll change over to the Atem Mini software control, and we can check
Okay,
this
so
out.
he's going to jump to the software.
So,
now, which
well, the
is-
first thing we can actually talk about is the new multi-view. So what I need to do is I'll plug in using USB into the software because we haven't got a connection up here. So let's
Is that
plug
an
in
M1 Mac? I don't think so.
Not a
USB, and we'll
chance.
plug in into one of the 2 USB ports that we've got on the back. So now we should have the Atem software control come up.
Oh no!
There it is. And so you can see the
What was that?
multi-view is a little different
That
to the
was
Atem
him
Mini Pro.
showing you the
I don't know if
software.
we can cut to that.
No.
We've
we're
actually
just-
taken the
we're kinda
multi-view
over
from
there.
the
Oh,
Atem
no, that's
Constellation
just
8K.
having issues.
It's our best
Oh.
multi-view by far.
Oh, you're right.
It's an incredible multi-view. So this is why we wanted to really bring that across. So we're taking it from our top switcher. It still includes the audio meters on all the views. It still includes custom labels on the views, which the other Atem Minis can do. The Atem Mini Pro, sorry, the Atem Mini Pro doesn't have the multi-view. But now you can also select the number of views. It supports up to 16 views in total. So let me show you how this works. So over in the Atem software control, all we have to do is go to the settings, and
You said it was
It's like
8K,
multi-view.
is that new?
you can see here's our multi-view
Not for
settings over
the-
here. So
Well,
if I want
yeah,
to change to
it could be,
16 views, for
but
example, I just have to
obviously they
click
have
on
AP
this like on
sources
here,
now, cameras and stuff.
and it'll now change to 16 views. So I can also change sources. So for example, I could
Oh, so it's
change, well, actually that's already on the audio status. So I could change it to, anything I really like, one of the color generators. Well, I've already got a color generator. Number 1 there, I could do a color generator 2. So you can see it's quite nice. And I'll switch it back to my program view, which I have there. Now 16 views is really great with those 2 HDMI video outputs. because you can use a 2-monitor setup, which is what we actually are showing you behind. I'll go back to a nice shot. So one monitor has the 16 sources on the multi-view, and the other one has the program view. So that's a really nice combination to have, because you can use those two outputs to really give you that big program view, and then you've got tons of views on the multi-view. Now, the Atem Mini Pro also has a media player with 20 still frames. With the latest software update that we did on the Atem Mini Pros, they even retain those still frames between the power cycle. But with the Atem Mini Extreme, you now get 2 media players. So let's take a look at that. So we switch to the media play page. I'll get rid of this there, and we'll go to the media page. You can see I've got the 2 media players, and we can load a still into media player number 1.
Well, it is.
So I've just loaded a still into there, and I can load a
his
another graphic in the media player number 2. In fact, the default media players have already set up to use slots 1 and 2. So now you have 2 video sources into the switcher, and you can see them on the multi-view. In fact, the multi-view by default shows the 2 media players there.
Which I agree with.
Now, previously we showed you using DV preset buttons to turn on the 2 multi-views. We've got, DVEs. We've got 2 DVEs in the switcher. This is great for interviewing multiple people. You can show like 2 different interviewers at the same time, so it's really nice. So let me show you the DVEs in the switcher.
Sorry.
So if I go across to the palettes, I can see I've got my upstream keyers, and there's the DVE. And you can see I can turn on that keyer. So there it is there. And I can move the DVEs around. This is where you do the adjustments.
Turn on what keyer?
There. You can see you can position those all over the place. It's really
I don't know if they're calling the
size.
picture-in-picture a keyer.
So 2 DVEs are really nice. So I'll turn off that key. So there's 2 key DVEs built in, and that's just really flexible. But with so many inputs, we also thought we could do a lot more. More inputs actually allow us to do some pretty exciting things. So we've actually included SuperSource in the Atem Mini Extreme. Now, what SuperSource is, if you don't know, because you haven't used some of our bigger switcher, bigger switches, SuperSource is 4 DVEs in a multi-layer compositing engine. So what this means is you actually get 4 video sources as separate DVEs in a layer stack.
That was a lot of words.
So you basically get a 4 DV kind of layering engine. Plus you've got the 2 DVEs that are actually built in there. So that's 6 DVEs in total in the switcher. And there's also, the SuperSource has support for a background graphic as well as a foreground graphic. Now, a background graphic goes behind all those DVEs, whereas a foreground graphic goes over the front of the DVEs. And that's actually really very powerful because it allows you to create like really nice graphics with borders and things because it goes in front of the DVEs. Then it really creates nice borders on those DVEs. So it's really nice. And so SuperSource is fantastic for interviews where each interviewer has a separate picture-in-picture.
I think this
it's great for gaming competitions. You get 4 cameras and 4 consoles all connected at once because you've got enough inputs, and you could have combinations of gamers and their console, consoles or overlaid on top. It's really nice. So let's have a quick look, and we'll show you how this works. So what we do is we'll start by selecting SuperSource on the front panel. We have a dedicated button on the front panel for SuperSource. There it is there. And now it's basically by default, it's a 4-box setup, as you can see there. Now this is the SuperSource. It's not even the normal DVEs, but you can also change it in the Atem software control. So what you do is you go into the SuperSource palette, which there it is there. And you can see I've got a bunch of different interesting combinations you can select. And you can show the arrangement positions, and you can set all the inputs to the SuperSource DVEs. So you can see there.
Do you know who this guy is?
You can change the different boxes and then do the controls and change the inputs and all the settings and where they are. And you can also load in a graphic. So for example, if I go to media player and load in a foreground graphic, I can now change that into media player 2, and I can go back to SuperSource and I select art. Now what I need to do is I need to select media player 2 as my graphic source, but it's made that graphic the background. I actually want the graphic to be the foreground. So let's do that because it's got borders on it, and the borders actually now become the DVE borders. So you can see there it's all lined up and it looks really nice. Now, you can spend a lot of time getting all this perfect. We've actually got the graphic. This graphic just supports the default SuperSource layout. But really the trick here is to line up all the DVEs so they match the graphic. And, we made this graphic to suit the default SuperSource layout, so we didn't have to spend time doing it here. But you can really see how powerful it is. Now, SuperSource is really separate to those 2 main DVEs. So that means they're still available if you need to use them for something else. Although I'm not sure how much stuff you can really put on the screen at one time.
Can't tell if I'm
now, the other thing we've done with Atem Mini Extreme is we have 8 inputs. So we can do a lot more with the keyers. So what 8 inputs mean is that Atem Mini Extreme is big enough to actually do virtual sets. So we now have 4 Atem Advanced Chroma keyers in this switcher. which means you can do 4 separate chroma keys at the same time. They're
Chroma
completely
keyers.
independent. So that's basically means you could have 4 separate cameras that could have a dedicated chroma key each. So you can use basically the 8 inputs to do virtual set,
Okay, I'm gonna
to
say a
create
word.
virtual
You tell me
sets,
if you've already heard
4
it.
live cameras over 4 live backgrounds. So 4 of the inputs we use for the cameras and then key them, and
4
4
live
inputs will
cameras
be used
over
for the
4
live
live
rendered
backgrounds?
backgrounds that are
Yes.
coming in from the virtual set
So I'm behind.
processing. Now, a lot of
Yes.
virtual sets actually use our
Oh.
decklink cards. We even have a quad HDMI model. So, I reckon third-party developers could even create some really interesting virtual set rendering machines. But you could also use macros and the media players to do fixed camera virtual sets. So let me show you the keyer palettes in the Atem software control. So if I go across, I'll close the SuperSource one. Well, actually, we kind of showed you this before because we used it
Well,
for
no,
the
you
DVDs,
may
but
be
there they
on,
are
so I'm
there.
actually way behind
See,
now
they're
because I'm
4
watching it
independent
via the
keys.
stream. But you
Now,
already heard
what
the
that
words
means
I
is
was
you can
saying?
control these
Yes.
with macros, and you can switch the media players into the keys. So what that means is you could create a fixed camera virtual set all in the Atem Mini Extreme without any extra hardware. So each camera would have a pre-rendered background, so you could basically put that behind the camera, so you can key the camera over a green screen and then put that background in the back. And if you don't move the camera, you don't really need a live motion virtual set. You can just render out some still frames from a 3D model of a set and put them behind each camera, and then use the macros to switch the media players into the keys. So it's an incredibly powerful having 4 independent chroma keys. I think it's going to make the whole virtual set thing possible. I mean, it's really, that's a whole
CG
new
sets
world that
are
we could really pretty much open up.
Early 2000s.
So it's really quite exciting. Now, of course, the big question, then, what about bigger work? What happens if you want to take it even further? What happens if you want to build a bigger studio? So the Atem Mini Extreme is really the perfect match for the Atem 1ME Advanced panel. In many ways, that became our yardstick of how big this switcher should be. Let's just make it perfect for an Atem 1ME Advanced panel. It's a totally professional setup. It unlocks a lot of the power in the switcher. There's dedicated buttons. I've got a few slides here that you can see. It's got dedicated buttons for all the switcher functions. The design is a very traditional broadcast switcher, so it's great for training and education. So using that Atem 1ME Advanced panel is a really good way to use the switcher. The Atem Mini 1ME Advanced panels behind me are connected to the Atem Mini Extreme here. And so we're running the whole panel from there.
This is just going to be a
Now it shows, the great thing is you can see, and I'll bring up some slides here, you can see that all the buttons have input labels, so you can have custom source names. Now there's 10 buttons on these panels, so that supports the 8 inputs of the Atem Mini Extreme and plus the 2 media players all on that row. And there's a shift button, so you can switch to another 10 sources. You can also see there's a nice big T-bar fader handle. It's got direct access to the downstream keys on the right-hand side there. You can see there's a select bus, which has got all the labels on it. So again, you get, if you custom label the inputs, it's not just numbers, they're actually the custom labels. And that select bus will switch to macro control. So there's a macro button. And when you switch over, then all your macros, you can see them by name. So if you're using, if you're a bunch of custom macros and you've labeled them by name, then you can actually see the actual proper names on the panel because you've got an LCD for the labels. Now it's got a really large system control LCD, gives you really fast access to all the settings. You get a joystick for moving those DVEs around for both the SuperSource and the normal DVEs. So I think the Atem Mini Extreme is really perfect size for this panel, and it adds a completely professional workflow when you plug it in. So really, this switcher can go much further if you now fill it out with some of the control panels. And you wouldn't even know it's an Atem Mini model switcher when you're using it, if you didn't know. Also, we have the Atem camera control panel. It's got dedicated control for all the cameras. That's also perfectly matched for this. It's got 4 controllers, but you can change the controllers really quickly. So you can do more than 4 cameras, and in this case, we'd want to use 8. It's got a really nice big knob on the front, and that's the iris control, which is the default control. It's so nice to use. If you rotate the control, it actually sets the black level. And if you push the control, it actually selects the camera to the video output. And that's something that's used by camera operators when you can use one of the, because they're proper aux outputs, you can use one of the outputs to give the camera operator a view of his cameras. So you can be using one of the camera video outputs for multi-view, while your camera operator is actually pushing the knobs and switching that second output so he can see what he's doing, and so he gets a chance to match the cameras by really quickly switching between them. There's also RGB knobs for tint, and that uses the color corrector in the camera. The pocket cameras, for example, have the color correctors built into them, and you can use the tint controls. There's lots of other controls as well. So you can really see how powerful Atem Mini Extreme can be when you realize that once you use it with those panels, really how nice it is. It goes all the way to the most professional workflow you can get. So really, let's summarize what we have here. We've got 8 inputs. Each input has standards conversion. You just plug anything in and it works. The audio mixer supports processing on all those inputs, which means every HDMI input has a separate limiter, noise gate, compressor, and EQ. There's 4 upstream Atem advanced chroma keys. They're the good keys, the most advanced keys we have in Atem switches. There's 2 downstream keys for titles. There's 2 media players for graphics and titles. There's 2 independent DVEs for picture-in-picture effects. There's a super source with another 4 additional DVEs and a multi-layer processor. There's a select bus on the front panel. The multi-view supports up to 16 different views. Both HDMI outputs have source routing, so they work as aux outputs. There's a separate headphone connection with audio monitoring bus, so you've got separate audio monitoring control of that. It's really basically like a 1ME HD version of our Constellation switcher. It's basically the best 1ME switcher we have. It's way more powerful than actually our 1ME SDI models. So it's really exciting. It's an insane switcher. So it's very exciting. Now, the Atem Mini Extreme will be available now for $995. I reckon it's going to be really exciting to see how people use it.
See, $1,000.
Yeah, who knows what kind of new workflows are going to be possible, particularly say things like the virtual sets and things like that. So it's really exciting.
Atem Mini Extreme.
Now, that's not all we've done. We have an ISO model of our Atem Mini Pro. So we thought it'd be really nice to have an ISO model of the Atem Mini Extreme. And we do have that. It's called Atem Mini Extreme ISO, and it records all 8 inputs and the program video. Now, this model features a massive record engine.
See, that's cool.
It basically records 9 streams in total.
1080p.
It saves the DaVinci Resolve project, so you can record and open up your whole live production as an edit. It means you can fix bad edits, replace shots, and add color correction later. You can even trigger the record in the Blackmagic Pocket cameras, because those Pocket cameras support Blackmagic RAW files, so you can link them to the edit. And that's how you can actually do an Ultra HD film workflow in a HD switcher. So it's a great combination. The combination of Blackmagic RAW and color correction makes film-looking shows.
He's so Australian.
So obviously we wanted to have an Atem Mini Extreme that can do that. That's why we felt it was really very important for us to have an ISO model of the Atem Mini Extreme.
I just love
it's really quite amazing. Let me bring one out and we can have a look.
People not in the US say H.
You can see it's kind of quite simple. It's very similar. It's the same. Actually, I'll put it above it so you can see
this was both models compared there.
Nah, it's going to be.
So you can see it's basically the
$12.95.
It looks the same as the Atem Mini Extreme, except this is Atem Mini Extreme ISO. So we'll plug it in. We'll transfer the connections across to this guy here. I'll put it on top because I think that might be the easiest way to transfer the connections. A little bit undignified for the switcher that's below it.
You don't have to show us.
Let's change the connections across. So input 3, input 4, input 5.
Yeah, being able to isolate and record each stream by itself would be
7. Input 8.
It's pretty priceless.
Output number 2.
Your workstation has to be
exactly the same.
Right? Like
No,
it's not
I'm gonna
recording
use
to the board.
No, I think it's internal. I don't know if it is.
Change our,
So do you get like pre-roll?
plug that in my switches.
That'd be cool.
Really gone offline now.
Well, it's running the whole time. So once you hit record,
And I'll
it just records
Take
all
that.
cameras to
Take the extreme out of the way.
USB-C out.
let's line it up so we
Pretty
can get
sure
that
it's how it
overhead camera looking good.
Again, 1080p though,
There it is there.
and it
So
is what it is.
You can see it's all lit up and it looks very similar
there's no
to
raw,
the some of my audio there.
which is still.
So you can see
He
it's
said
basically the same as the
something
Atem Mini
about 8K
Extreme,
earlier.
except it's the ISO model. So it's got
I
similar
think it'll accept
multi-view,
8K,
everything's
I don't
there.
think it'll
It's got some different setups in it because it's a different switcher. So now what I'll do is I'll plug in a
HDMI
flash
can't
disk, which I've got here.
8K.
I've got 2 USB ports, so I can plug it in the second one.
Yeah, see, now he's plugging in his SSD.
Now because it's 9 streams, you do need a decent flash disk. Some flash disks aren't as fast as they say they are. They'll do bursts at high speed, but they won't sustain it. So make sure you're using a good quality flash disk. Now what we'll do is we'll go to the record palette because I've got to show you that. So it's in the output menu here. If you can cut across the UI, I'll turn off the live stream. Now you can see it's the same palette as the Atem Mini Pro models used. So what we need to do is set the ISO recording on. So this is the control here. So if you turn that on, now will enable the ISO. And you can start recording. Now I can do that on the front panel, which I will do. You can do it from the UI as well. And there it is now. Now I'm recording to the disk. I can change between some of the different sources. Do some cuts, different sources here. And I can do some transitions, maybe do some dissolves. There's a dissolve.
But your output's going to be
Just like
like
a
a
real job.
Zoom call, right? Where it's going to have
Got a nice
one
fast transition.
master mix and
Yeah,
then individual.
Now, it's worth mentioning that you can use
files.
a USB hub and use
Yeah.
multiple disks. If you're recording with multiple disks, it'll move from disk to disk as each disk fills up. So you can record forever if you keep adding empty disks. You You can also use a Blackmagic multi-dock. It's 4 SSD disks on a single USB port. So that's really nice. Now, while it's recording, let's plug. I've got the USB actually. I'm controlling the computer via the USB. I'm not actually using it via the network. I'm using the USB connection. So I have webcam coming into the computer. So let's launch an app. I'll just use QuickTime Player. I had that up a second ago. So there it is there. And if I go to the file menu and use a video recording, I can show the webcam
Careful
source.
not to show us anything we don't want
So
to see.
what I've got going on now is I've got a recording going on while I've got webcam source. And also, let's start streaming to YouTube. So if I turn on streaming, now I'll run the streaming. And so now I'm actually live streaming to YouTube, and it's now really heavily loaded up. I'm doing 9 streams of recording because I'm doing an ISO recording. I've got USB webcam going on the screen here, and I've also got live streaming to YouTube all at the same time. So now if I do some more transitions, I just keep doing that, and it's pretty nice. Now, what I can do is I can now stop recording, and we can go and have a look and see what it looks like on the computer. So I'll stop recording, and I'll stop streaming as well. And I'll close this. Now I'll take my disk and I'll plug it into the computer so we can have a look what it looks like on the computer. So we've got 2 USB ports on the side of the computer. So I'll minimize my software controller. So if you can switch across to the Atem, I don't want to use that
Do you want to use it for Time Machine?
as a
No.
backup. So there it is there. So here's my disk that I've just recorded on the Atem Mini Pro ISO. So I can open up the disk and see what's in there. You can see I've got a whole folder with all the files that have been recorded when I was doing my recording. Let's have a look inside. So you can see I've got my folder with my ISO files. You can see the 8 inputs there.
I think they're ProRes.
I've got the audio source files. I've also got a program recording here. And this is the DaVinci Resolve ISO file. Sorry, this is the program file. So basically it's the edit. So if I double click that, I've got DaVinci running in the background, and it'll now open up that folder. And there's my edit. So this is what I just did on the switcher. So if you look at the timeline, this is the cut page. I did a whole bunch of cuts and some transitions over here. And then I was talking for a while, and I do love talking. I was talking for a while, and then I did a few more transitions towards the end here. And you can see now that I can move edits around and really retrim and do all kinds of different edits. And if I go in here, I can see I've got my ISO files in here. There's all my different camera views. So there's, that's
so
just the recording from that one camera. So it's all really nice.
It's an EDL.
You can do all kinds of editing.
It's not just
what's also great is the Blackmagic RAW files I record. If you can record them in the camera, you can change those over and link to those if you wanted to. Now, I can also use the sync bin, so I can see all the camera views. So if I go up to the sync bin up here, what I've now got is, go back to my master. Now I've got all the camera views back in a multi-view because they're all synchronized. They've all got the same time code. Now I can run up and down and now re-edit, especially if you're using the speed editor. This is really fast. And I can now, re-edit or change and drop over.
Well, it kind of is,
I can use the
you could
source
do this
override
in
edit
Premiere
mode, which
for
is this one
years.
here. And it'll actually edit
you couldn't go
various
from a live
shots into the
thing
timeline and sync up all the time code and everything for you. So it's
to
really
repair like
fast
an edit
to create
instantly.
new edits. And if you're
So
using
live
Blackmagic
switch,
RAW
you had
files
to go
for cameras,
load in
which you can also select to switch over to the link to,
the program
you can
file,
finish in Ultra
load in all the
HD.
ISO cameras.
and you can also do
Even
color
if they're
correction
trying to
because they're all
sync,
film
sometimes
cameras.
sync them, then you have to
So
go
I'll
and
switch
find
back
where the edit was. And here, you just open it up. It's already
So, I think
timeline.
it's amazing if you think you can record, this switch will record 9 video streams all at the same
And
time.
everything's connected.
It's
You
an
just
incredibly
fix it
powerful model.
and export it.
It's very exciting. So the Atem Mini Extreme ISO is just starting production
That's really
now.
cool. Yeah, see,
It'll probably
1300.
be,
What
appearing
did you
in about a
say?
week
12?
or
I
so.
said 1300.
It's
I said 1295.
Okay,
And I
close.
can't wait
It
to
was
see
the
how
same.
people actually use it. It's really
Oh,
exciting.
jeez.
Okay, so next I wanted to talk about how to add streaming to it.
Man, get me one.
Blackmagic Web Presenter has
That's
been a
not
real popular
bad.
streaming
I
solution.
mean, that would have
But it
been
was
10
quite
grand a
limited. It
couple years
was
ago.
basically USB webcam only, and it was the webcam was only 720p. So we wanted to totally redesign this model, but we also wanted to reposition what it was used for. So it was more than just a simple redesign. We wanted the new model to be
Is it
more
on
focused on sort of
720p?
high-end workflows and to work with our most powerful switches that we have.
The Mini?
Yeah, the Atem Mini in many ways can now handle the HDMI
I
workflows.
don't know.
So we really wanted a newer model that was really designed for an SDI workflow only. We also needed a solution for Atem Television Studio and our
That's
Atem
what I
constellation
was saying.
switches. So we've designed a whole new model, and it's
Said they
dramatically
wanted
more
one that
powerful.
was more
I'll go across here
SDI
and we've got a bit of
focused.
space, and I can show you. I'll bring the unit out. So here it is. Here it is here.
There's the cameras.
You can see the similar size. It's the same size as the old design, but it's a whole new
Oh,
design.
this is the streaming box.
Basically, our thoughts were it's a bit like a television transmitter for the streaming age.
So that was
It's kind of the
720.
philosophy we used when
Yeah,
we
it is.
designed it. It's way more advanced than the previous model, and it has a lot more features.
How cute.
It removes a few of the features we don't need, like the HDMI input. We don't need that now. But it's been designed specifically for high-end broadcast
There it
and
is.
live event
That's the
work.
new camera that he's just
So
going to
it's a much
slide
more
over
sort
and
of
talk
higher end.
about
So
it.
we've repositioned it, and changed the underlying philosophy about what it's really now for. Now it's only a third rack width, so it uses our Turnix Mini rack shelves if you want to rack mount it. Let's have a look at the back. I'll turn it around. You can see the rear side. I think you get a close up of that.
Everyone
So it's quite
that
different
I
than the
was
old
looking
model.
at wanted it to
Now it's
be
got a 12
more of
GSDI
a
input,
cube,
and
like
it's got a
the
Turnix down
Komodo
converter
or
on the
the
input.
Z-Cam.
So you can
Which
take
I
any
don't know,
HD
I
or
like
Ultra
the
HD
way it
input and
is.
stream to it. It doesn't matter what the input video is, it just works. You'll see that there's also a loop, there's one loop 12G SDI output, so you can loop out to other equipment. And what that lets you do is you can build like an array of web presenters for multiple platforms, or even redundancy. For example, you could use the one
What
web
does it
presenter for the
say?
YouTube primary stream and a separate
What's
web
the
presenter
name
for the
of this
YouTube secondary stream,
video?
and you can loop the
Ours?
SDI input across
Theirs.
to
Oh,
all
is
those
it
different web
it's
presenters for
called
the different platforms. Gives you a lot of
camera
redundancy.
update?
Now, there's
or
also a
announcement?
HDMI and a 3G
I think
SDI
it's-
monitoring output, which I'll talk
It
about
might
in a
have
minute.
just
The reason
it
we put
might
a
just be
HDMI
called
output on there for
an
monitoring is
update.
because
Which
you can just
made
plug
me
a
think
computer
it's
monitor
gonna
straight
be-
in. So
So why were
even
we
though the
thinking
newer
it was
model
going
is designed for
to
SDI workflows, I think
Well,
the
you
rest
never
of
know.
them
These
there,
guys, you
you
never
don't
know.
need to use a separate
Because they pulled the
converter to
6K
monitor.
out of the air.
Now, it still works with USB webcam. You see there's a USB on the back there, but now it's 1080p.
It was almost like a subtle
webcam.
Steve Jobs. Oh,
So it's
and
much
one
better
more
than the
thing.
previous model, which was only 720p with a webcam.
One more thing.
You can
We're
also
now
see the
selling cell
Ethernet connections
phones.
there. So it's got the live streaming now built in. It's got a professional
I'd buy that
H.264
Blackmagic cell phone.
codec built in. So it'll now live stream direct to the
Well,
platforms, to the online
the screen would be
platforms.
terrible.
If we
You
do
don't need
this
any computer
again,
software now. It's all self-contained in this one
we
small
need to
unit.
make me look less fat.
And then you can use both the USB
you can fix
webcam
that.
and the live streaming at
Sitting
the
up
same time. They
straight.
both work at the same
Crossfit.
time. You can also see we've got
No.
two power options
Not
on
a
the rear panel there
sponsor.
as well. There's the AC for regular power, plus there's now a broadcast 4-pin 12-volt DC power for backup power. And you could use that with a separate power supply, and so you'd have two AC sources, one direct and one using the power supply, or that could be a battery, so you could stay on air in a power failure. So it's really exciting. Now let's turn it around. We'll have a look at the front again, and we'll plug it in and get it up and running. We need to plug in
Sumo, because
a whole bunch of
the
connections.
Sumo,
So I'll
the
plug in
Atmos
some
stuff has
power.
been dying on me lately, which is
But,
no good.
I think I've been plugging a lot of connections in today.
Is that
some
one
power, I've got
flickering?
my-
Or
I don't think it's
Ethernet.
the power. I think this
So I'll plug
monitor
in.
I already
I've also
sent
got-
in once,
I'll use the HDMI monitoring out,
and they sent it back to me with things rattling around
plug in.
inside.
and I'll plug my SDI source. When that SDI source is coming from the Atem Mini here, so we'll just convert the
that's
program out.
cute. Look at
So
that
we get a
little
nice
preview
source and plug it all
screen.
in. So you should be able to see that on the front panel. Now it's all up and running. Now the old models, the front
Imagine
panel was
just
actually
sitting in front
optional.
of that little
Now it's
thing,
included as standard. So you get that front panel
trying to
as standard.
mix those.
Yeah, because it
screen.
live streams internally, you really
think
need
that's
the front
just for
panel
the-
to control. It's got that dedicated on-air button, so you really need to
Peace of
see.
mind.
You really need to have access to that. And there's also menus as well. So let's see how that works. So we've got a computer up on the rear screen.
That's
If we
what
can
it's
switch
for,
across
is
to that.
for
And that's got
menus,
YouTube
but
and a web browser, so we can bring the unit
They
on
need
air.
to share that with GoPro.
And that's all there is to it.
GoPro front.
Now, you can also do
screens
this from the
suck.
utility. I've got a Mac over here, which I've got plugged into the network. This is plugged into the network as well. I can run the utility and show you. So if you can just pan across here and get a cut of the computer over here. Here's the Atem, here's the Blackmagic Web Presenter utility. So I can go in there, and you can see I've got the settings in here. It's similar settings to the Atem Mini, so it's very familiar. So that looks like the streaming tab in the Atem Mini. So
If
it's
you
quite
really
a
want
familiar
to have a headache,
user interface.
imagine
I've already
he's
entered
doing all
the
this, but
streaming
there's
settings in here,
probably
so it's
another
fast to
board
show you,
on
so I
this
didn't really have to
side
do any of
that
that.
they're actually mixing.
And so that's
the whole
nice.
thing.
So if we go back to the unit, you can see the
Guaranteed.
front panel also has all the buttons for the LCD menus, and you can change settings from the front panel as well. So you can turn on the menu button over here. You can see I've got some menus. And the LCD also includes video monitoring and audio meters. There's a really nice
got
big,
the
if you look at
big
the status
beta
of that
tapes on the
LCD, and you can
back,
get a bit of a
and
close-up of
then-
that. So it's a really big on-air indicator. I wanted an on-air indicator that's big enough that when you're looking across the room
containers.
at a rack, you can actually see which web presenters are on air. So that's why we needed that a
I
bit
would think
larger.
so. Just
The input
an
video
old
standard's
school
also on there
type
as well.
thing.
There's
Yeah,
also a
because
time
look at
counter
his
showing how long the
looks,
stream's
Look
been
at
running.
his.
It even includes a day
You're talking
count, so it's
about
actually
on the left
day,
Yeah,
hours, minutes,
so
and
they do.
seconds.
They
Big
make
cassettes.
The network status is
they
there
make
as well.
big-
Now it also supports
you
the phone
don't do
tethering
that
like the
stuff,
Atem Mini
right?
that I showed you
Yeah.
before. If the Ethernet goes down, you can switch over.
He's got a
So you can plug in the
like those,
phone, a mobile phone,
medium
into the
format
USB.
stills,
The LCD will show what
Oh,
network
yeah.
this connection's active because there's actually a
or
network
whatever that is
indicator there,
between medium
whether it's
and
Ethernet or mobile data.
Medium.
So I don't need to show you how the tethering works because it's the same as the Atem Mini Pro I just showed you. Now there's also, you will notice on the front, there's a USB-C connection on the front panel. That also works as a webcam. So what's really interesting about that is you can basically walk up to the front of the unit and plug straight into it and monitor video with any software that works with a webcam. I was just using QuickTime Player before. Now that's great for diagnostics. And the utility also works through USB or Ethernet. So you can walk right up to the front of a rack and plug into the unit and get both live video and change the settings, all in that one USB connection. Plus you can plug a phone into the front panel as well. So that USB also supports the phone, so you can plug the phone tethering in. So if you had an internet problem when you're running, you can actually go and plug your phone into the front panel. So that USB on the front is really flexible. So of course, you know, what other things can you do? Well, one of the interesting uses you can use is with editing. Now on the Mac over here that I'll show you with DaVinci, I've got an Ultra Studio Mini monitor connected to the Mac. It converts the timeline out to live video for monitoring, which is how you generally would use that. When you're video editing, you want to see your user interface, but it's nice to have another video monitor showing the actual live video.
Which is
so if I
just
plug that
SDI
into
to
the
HDMI,
Webpresenter
right?
HD, I can actually use it to stream to remote clients. So let's connect the Ultra Studio Mini monitor into the Webpresenter HD. I've got that connection here, so I'll unplug
card, so you don't have any color
the
treatment
Mini
to it,
source,
but
and
the
I'll
system
plug
will
in my Atem Mini monitor, and that'll switch over.
So you get
Now,
do a
what we can do is go
calibrated
across to
monitor.
the timeline. So if we cut back to the timeline here, I've got the utility running, so I'll quit that, and now I'll come back here to the timeline. You can see now I've got the video from the editing timeline playing out to, I'll loop that and play it.
Holy cow! Yeah,
This is
I'm
my
like
editing
4
timeline
seconds
now,
behind
running
Probably refresh
out.
it
And you
to
can
the settings.
basically send the stream to clients and they can watch the edit. You just need to set the YouTube stream to low latency and it works really well. So you can see the Webpresenter is actually really flexible. You can use it for all kinds of tasks. I mean, who knows what else it can be used for. It's really quite nice. So remember the two monitoring outputs we talked about before.
I missed that.
Let's connect those up and we'll see how those work. So if we come back to the Webpresenter here. Now I've plugged in the monitoring. If we can switch it up onto the screen here, we can see what's going on. In fact, I'll plug the switcher back in. I'll unplug the timeline and plug back into the switcher so I can do some cutting. See, there it is. Now, you can see if I cut to that directly, I've got a feed into the switcher. This is a high-end broadcast streaming transmitter, so we really wanted to do something serious with the monitoring. So it includes a lot more information you'd sort of expect on a simple monitoring out. Basically, it's got everything I needed when I worked in post-production. You know, I was putting in digital systems back in the 90s, and I needed, you know, a lot of outboard gear that had different sort of information that I needed to make sure the whole system worked. I've taken pretty much all of that and just put it in this one tech monitoring output. So let me explain what's really going on this video output. So if you can cut to that, you'll see that output directly. So obviously we've got a very large video display. It's got audio meters, and those audio meters, you can select the type of audio meter. The VU meter is what we're using here. It's got the correct ballistics. Now there's a title at the top left-hand side, and you can change that. So for example, if you had multiple web presenters doing different streams, you could have like YouTube primary, YouTube secondary, you could name them, and that title at the top left will change. And it really helps you keep track of which web presenter is what if you're switching to monitoring. Like you could use, because there's an SDI monitoring out, you could actually run it into a router and have monitor switching across all the different statuses of all different web presenters. You got a nice big on-air indicator. You got a time counter for streaming, which is like the front panel. There's a bunch of streaming details as well. The platform, the streaming standard, the quality, and the streaming key. Obviously, we're only showing part of the streaming key. You don't want the whole key. People just hack your stream, so we don't want to do that. Now, we have a nice little area for video status, and that's all the video input information. So there's a film strip, so you can see the last 6 seconds of the inputs. You can see a recent history of what's been going on as the video source. There's also lots of technical data. There's the input video standard, there's colorimetry, time code, CRC check, bloomer and chroma bit activity. Now that's an interesting display. Basically what you get is an X is displayed when the bit's changing between high and low, or it's an L when it's low, or it's an H when it's a high bit. And what that's really good for is seeing if you've got 10 or 8-bit video. Now if it was 8-bit video, the bottom 2 bits on the right-hand side there will be L's because they don't have any data in them. So it's a really good quality check. And it also can tell you if you have a stuck bit in some of the upstream processing. So you can really see what kind of things are going on. For example, if you saw some banding or something strange happening on the stream, you can have a quick look at the bit activity, see what the quality of the video level is, if it's 10-bit, or if you've got a weird stuck bit or some kind of other fault. They're broadcast engineers who actually know about the SDI standard might notice that all the bits are low when there's black video. That's because we've subtracted the SDI offsets to make the bit activity a bit easier to understand. So that's what we've done there. Because it's more a more user-based feature than is a sort of a technical-based feature for the video standard. Now, the audio input area is actually quite similar to the video area. You see there's an audio waveform that shows the last 6 seconds of the audio.
Probably someone from
So it's, again,
Canon.
it's a recent history of what's been going on the
That'd be
sound.
so funny if you zoom out.
There's also
and they're shooting
details
this
of the
whole thing on
audio channel
camera.
status word, and these details are
have to
encoded.
put
These are
all
the
of
details
our
basically that are encoded
Blackmagic
with the audio
cameras in the
data.
background.
This
Now, we
might have
decode
been-
those bits and display the results. So you can
But
see some of the
the,
information there, like sample
definitely he's being
frequency,
shot.
emphasis, word length, origin, time of
Native.
day, sample address. There's the aux bit status. Now, not all
Whatever,
products
not
that do audio, use this information. But
saturation
generally,
setting.
generally audio works without it. But there's a lot of information there. It's almost like additional sort of information. Some stuff's used like emphasis, but not all of it. The CRC is checked and displayed. There's also a bit activity indicator, like the video, but this one's showing the entire AES kind of audio word. And it's a really nice way of seeing the audio bit depth. Like you can check to see if you've got 16, 20, or 24 bit audio. The 4 flag bits are also shown, and they're labeled
That's
with the V, U, C, and P above those. They're the actual flag bits. Now, this is there's also an embedded audio status indicator. Now, these show you which channels in the SDI connection actually have data embedded into them. Now, a lot of equipment can actually embed more channels than they really use. Like, for example, our Hyperdeck, if it embeds 16 channels, even if you've got it set to stereo, so there's only actually audio on 2 of the channels.
Oh,
But this is a great way to see what audio channels are present in the SDI connection. And if there's a channel present, it'll be displayed as a P.
Is it down?
So you can see
We
that
had
there.
some serious issues this morning.
Now, you also notice at the bottom, there's actually 2 graphs. Now, this is the same data rate and cache indicators that on the Atem Mini, or the Atem Mini Pro, I should say, or the Atem Mini Extreme now. But there's actually a graph of the last 60 seconds of the history of what's been going on. So the data rate for the last 60 seconds is really nice because it shows you kind of the recent history of the data rate needed to encode this video. Now, the data rate is really dependent on the quality and the frame rate and also the input video. So there's a lot of things that can actually affect how much data you're encoding to. So what you're seeing here is what the codec is actually generating. This is the data rate the codec's generating. So it's also showing you what data rate you need from the network to get a good quality stream. So that's a really nice indicator, and it's always on. Even if you're not live, on air, it still shows that. There's also the cache status for the last 60 seconds as well, and this shows you a lot about the quality of the internet connection, of the network connection. So, if you're having problems with the network connection, you can see that going up, and because the cache is struggling to try and get the data out of the unit. So it's really exciting. So the technical monitoring output has really got a lot of useful information in it.
This is worse than the Oscars.
Now, the Blackmagic Web Presenter HD is going to be available now, and it'll be $4.95. And it includes the front panel with the LCD menus now. It's got the live stream built into it. Go to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and more.
Live streaming.
It also supports webcam.
You're on the internet.
It includes this broadcast
Take a
technical
step to
monitoring,
the
and it
right.
supports full remote
We're
control
waiting
via
for
the
the
software
camera
utility,
announcement.
Mac and Windows.
If it ever
And it's only a
happens,
third rack width, so you can get like 3 streaming channels in a single rack with if you put 3 of them. But it really fits
That's
perfectly
cool.
next to the Atem TV Studio HD. It had streaming to all
Yeah.
their SDI based,
Just
which
here.
I'm
Make sure you say it loud.
That's
So now I want to
not
talk about
possible.
Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. Now it's been received really well, and so like the 4K model, it's a true digital film camera. It's got a nice low light sensor in 6K. It's EF
There you
lens
go.
mount, so it works with lots of
Okay, I'll
lenses.
come. I'll come in a
The
second.
large sensor is just perfect with EF lenses. There's so many Canon lenses around that have EF lens mounts, so it's very common to find great lenses with it.
It's the only thing
Records
that
to
you can
internal
do.
cards as well as external USB discs. It's got 3D lookup
This is
tables.
interesting.
It includes Blackmagic Raw and Generation 4
Quality.
color science. It's got a
This
wonderful
is all
film
about
gamma.
this broadcast
Supports
a little
ProRes
bit.
recording. It's got
Yeah.
Blackmagic
Cameras.
OS. It's got a really big screen for a handheld camera. A lot of handheld cameras have tiny screens, but this is a big screen. Makes it really easy to focus.
No.
And there's
Yeah,
tons of
the
focus
agenda
assist features.
is ATM,
false color, histogram,
mini,
zebra,
and camera.
Frame guides, focus peaking, just lots of stuff. Plus, the HDMI
we've
monitoring
been
output
watching
includes
for
overlays for film
54
sets. You can set up like on-set monitoring, but it also includes the studio camera features
Yeah,
that
Tony
we've been
says,
using with Atem Mini here. So it's really a
He
production
always
camera and a
worries
studio
when he
camera in
talks
the
for
one
an hour
design.
about
Very easy to use,
the broadcast
very high
stuff. It's
quality,
like,
and it's getting
how
used
long
on
is
some
it?
really
Hey,
high-end
see,
work.
the
And
whole
how much we
stream
hoped it
is-
would. So what does that mean?
it's
Well,
like 5 minutes on. Oh yeah, we have
it's
a
doing
camera
high-end
update.
digital film really well, and it's being rigged and
Go
used
to
on high-end film
Blackmagic site to
projects. So
download the
I really started thinking about that and started thinking about a model that might have more features. So we were thinking, could we put some of the features from the Ursa Mini Pro into the Pocket camera design? And we've managed to do that. And so today we have a new model.
Oh.
It's a third camera in the range, and so I'll
Oh,
come across
what?
and show you. The
Can't
new model is
hear.
called Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, but it's actually a whole new design. It's slightly bigger, and it has because it's got a lot of new features included. So I'll bring one out, and you can have a look, and you can see for yourself.
Bigger.
So here it is here. So you can see I'll put it beside the other
Ooh.
cameras. So you can see from a design point of view, it's very similar. It has similar controls. So it's very familiar to use, but, because it's a member of the Pocket Cinema camera family.
So it gained
You can see
weight.
how it fits in there.
It did.
So I can show you the front. You can see it's really similar. If you
Hey,
get
there's a
close
mount
up to
on
that,
top.
you can see
There's a
how that
thread
works.
mount on top.
Oh, that's
It's
nice.
also very similar on the rear side. It has the same, I'll turn it around there. It's got the same amazing 6K sensor. However, we've actually upgraded it to generation 5 color signs from the
It's the
12K
same
camera.
sensor.
So it produces some amazing cinematic images. So I think the first thing you can really notice there is it's got a new LCD screen. It's a high brightness
Flips up
HDR screen. It
Or
also
no,
tilts
it
up and
flips
down.
out.
So if I
They're
turn the camera-
vlogging.
get the screen up, and you can see really how bright that screen is. And so it's great for outdoor shooting. And I can tilt it up,
It's a bright screen finally.
and I can tilt it down. So you see there it is there.
He flips it and then they cut away to
Remote
this.
control it. So if I tilt it down, you can shoot high up,
See, that's what I thought. It's just up
Yeah.
and down. It doesn't
High.
rotate out.
That's too bad.
and if I'm tilted down, I can shoot really low and get a nice
It's
sort of
still
low
good
view.
enough.
Also, tilting is great
They
for the
took
menus.
the-
It
I
helps to
don't
give you
know.
They took
Better
a cue
access
from
to the
the guy
menus.
who was modding.
there.
It might not be better than nothing
You
though,
see,
because
you
that
can
just
change
feels
the
like
menus.
it could break so much easier.
It's quite nice. So we've also, the other thing we've done is we've upgraded the battery, and now it's using an NPF 570 Sony style battery. Now it supports a lot longer battery life, which I think is important when you're recording the external
Sony
discs.
battery.
When you're running
Sony
external discs, the
batteries.
camera powers the disc, so having more
I
power
don't
really
own any
helps.
Sony batteries.
So let me show you the battery in the bottom here.
Oh,
So it's the
you-
same type of battery
you
door. There it is there. So it's a larger
No, it's still
battery.
pretty
Oh,
small.
I do have one of those batteries.
I
There
don't
it is
know.
there. It'll power
I'll
back
bet
up.
the runtime's the same.
So now what's the other exciting feature of this is the, turn it back off. Back on again, turned itself off. So what's also really nice is this new model has built-in ND filters. Now they're actually motor driven, so they are a little different to the Ursa Mini Pro ND filters. And if you look at the back here,
Oh,
we've got ND motor
I didn't think
a
about
guy
filter
was
controls
he
here.
commented that on
So let me
our video yesterday.
remove the lens.
Didn't
You can
think
actually
about
see them
that.
working if I take the lens off. So I'll do that. I always get
The
nervous taking the
FS3
lenses off.
has that.
So if you get
an
a close-up
electronic
there,
built in.
You can see
ND.
into the front of the
The
camera.
problem is it's not a big enough
Front
upgrade
camera
to
there, you can see
spend
it.
another grand on.
So now I can change
Because
the
it's going to be
filters.
more pricey than the 6K.
You can see them move. You got that? You can see them change. So
For
there's two
anybody who already
filters
has
there
one.
changing in, and they both work together. And there's also an indication on the rear. So let me put the lens back on.
And that's why it got fatter.
Yeah.
Oops. All right. So if I go around the back here, you can see the ND filters changing again. If you can get a shot of that.
And
But
look at this. We
Indy's
labeled
nice,
our
isn't it?
buttons.
You can see there's actually also a status on the LCD to show you
Oh,
what
as of right now,
filters are applied.
I would say I'm underwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I think it's much more
It's better than just
flexible.
the firmware
I'll turn the
update,
filters off.
but
It's fun. I could actually just sit here doing this all day. So it's great, of course, having the ND filters built in because it's much more portable solution. This is a portable camera, but it gives you total control of the shutter angle when you're in bright conditions because you can just pull those ND filters in, cut down the light. Now, there's also support for an electronic, an optional electronic viewfinder. So there's a separate viewfinder that you can purchase and add to the camera if you need it. It's called the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera Pro EVF, and it bolts right on top of the camera,
It's a little EVF.
right there. So let's have a look. I'll show you the EVF.
It's probably
you
300.
just
300.
clips
I'll
on
bring it
top
out.
or something.
Yeah.
You can see it's
like the
super
Canon
tiny there.
M
So you can see there it
series
is there.
ones.
Get a shot of that.
That's cool.
There it is there.
I
You
mean,
can see the underside.
for
That's
this is the
plugs into
first time
camera.
they've ever finally offered a solution for crappy.
And you see the lens there.
Screen.
And so I've got a really nice glass lens. Yeah, it's a professional viewfinder with a glass lens. Most viewfinders
It
are just plastic.
It looks
and,
like it is.
Just the
It
portable
just-
cameras, and they scratch easy. They don't look really clear.
Plug
This is a
straight
glass
in.
lens. It's very accurate. The focus, it's really clean and very clear. In fact, underneath, there's a focus adjustment on the bottom there, so you can adjust it. Now, because it's a professional viewfinder, we've actually also got eyepieces that are included with it. I'll bring them out. There's 4 eyepieces in total. So you've actually got some options. So you've got an eyepiece that's
Next
actually
product,
installed on it.
making hype.
Then there's a
Custom
slightly
icons.
larger version of that. Then there's also a very large one that's left and
If you
right
buy
eye.
that
So you've got a
rubber thing
few
for
different
the
options
lens
there.
caps.
Yeah.
Nice.
so I'll line them up there.
Makes it a lens.
And they come with it. So you don't have to buy them separately. Now, the viewfinder is really easy to install. You just unscrew the cover on the top
Oh,
of
it
the
comes with
camera,
it.
and then you can install it on top. So let me show you that. I'll unscrew the the cover on the camera. Screw it over here.
So obviously all the cage guys are like scrambling
take
to
that
make
off.
new cages.
There's the cover there. I'll just show you quickly. This is a plastic cover, just covers over the hole. And now you'll see there's a space on the top of the camera. You can get a shot of that.
Stimuli, huh?
You can see where the viewfinder plugs in. So all I need to do is plug the viewfinder in. Probably should turn the camera off when I do this. I'll tilt it up.
It's
There
kind
it
of
is.
Canon.
I can tighten it
You
down.
put that on there
This
though,
finger
and
tighten it.
it's almost
And there it is, it's
impossible
installed
to
on the
use
camera.
that top mount. No.
Yeah.
Now it tilts up and down like I was just doing to install it. So you can see you got a huge
Actually,
range.
the other ones had top
So you can
mounts
imagine
too,
with a
but
nice big eyepiece on there, you know, how nice that looks. Now the focus adjustment is under there. And if I turn the camera around, you can see,
See, but
Let's
that
get a
is
shot of that
that's worth it though. I feel
see
like
the lens
that
move.
might make it so you don't.
I'll
Besides
adjust
the
the
whole
focus.
not flipping it all the way around,
can you see that? So there it is there. So that's under there
you don't need to put
Now, there's
like
a
an
focus
Atmos
pattern
Ninja
built
on
in.
it anymore.
to the camera to allow you to get really accurate focus. So you just go into the
Yeah, I
monitor
don't know
menu and you can
about
access the focus chart from there. It's a really bright OLED display. So the sensor will, it's got a sensor on the back, so it turns the OLED on and off when you're not using it. And the main LCD will also turn off when you're using the viewfinder to save power. And you can see you can
'Cause that's
change
the
the
GH5.
viewfinders,
GH5
the
has
eyepieces
awesome
out. I'm actually left-eyed, so I
EVF,
like
and
the
the screen
left-eye
is pretty good.
eyepiece. And so it's a real professional solution. Now, if we look at the side of the camera, you can see we still have the SD card slots on the side. So we've got them there, so you can open up the card slots. So you've got the same media that the other card, the other models use. And we also have on the side connections here. So you can get a bit of a close-up of that. We've also got the very similar connections on the side. We still have the HDMI output for monitoring. We've got the USB for recording to external flash disks. We've got the headphone connector. We've also got the mic, the video type mic input connector, but we now have an extra XLR connector. So you can plug in 2 separate microphones, and they're both phantom powered, or you can, of course, plug in from professional audio gear. You can actually plug stereo XLR sources now. And then,
MIDI
as far as
XLR
phantom power goes, the new battery's got
my
lots of power for the battery. Now, the other thing we've got
This has XLR.
Yeah, this
is we
has
have a
two
new
XLRs,
battery grip.
mini XLRs.
Yeah, if you're doing very long shoots, you really
That's
wanted to,
new, right?
it's nice to have a
The
battery
second-
grip.
This one has XLR
It's
too,
called
just
the
mini.
Blackmagic
Just one
Pocket
of them.
Camera Pro Grip. Sorry, the Blackmagic Pocket Camera Battery Pro Grip. I always get that wrong for some reason. I've got some neural damage that's causing issues with the name. Now, it holds 2 extra
maybe we can use
batteries,
some
but it's a little
batteries,
different.
the
It
grip
supports
would
the
make
same
sense.
large
Of
batteries
course, it
that the
makes
camera
it
uses, so those
funky
newer
high in the air,
type
too.
batteries, and it bolts onto the bottom of the camera. So here it is there, you can
Makes
see, and it's a bit different.
Cube-ish
It
for those
doesn't
people.
displace the internal battery. So there it is there. So
I'm not in love
what you
with
can
it.
do is
it's
install on the
like
bottom of the
300
camera,
bucks.
and it won't displace. You're adding 2 extra batteries, and you keep the battery in the camera. So I think this is a better design. Now, if you see the top of it, how it does that, it's got these power
Oh, yeah,
pins
'cause
there,
the other one was
and that's how that talks to the
Weird.
camera. So there's a spot on the battery tray also to support. There's a cover
go inside
on the bottom of the camera.
batteries a lot.
there, which I'll unscrew.
Yeah, this is very Panasonic too.
And what that gives you is access to the power pins on the bottom of the camera. And if you see, you can get a close up of that. Now, there's actually a spot on the battery tray to store that little cover I just took
Oh,
off.
but that
So you don't
adds
lose it.
one battery.
And then if you
Two.
take the battery grip off, you
It's
can
got
then
2 in
reinstall that on the
in
bottom.
grip.
So let's put the battery grip on, and you can have a look. So basically just mount it down like that and
40,
spin the
4,500 for this.
screw, and there it is. It's all on the camera. Turn the camera back on.
You're just
So
gonna
now I'm
have
running
it
3
run
batteries
for
in the
whatever
camera.
that
So
is.
it's,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
monster when
kinda
you've got that installed. Look
Oh,
at
that
that.
doesn't look terrible actually.
And the battery tray slides out, so you can
Looks like a Canon XL1 or
slide the
whatever.
batteries out,
Yeah.
and you can change them. And the battery, the camera still runs. It won't turn off.
A1, X1.
So, and you can just uninstall it by
D1.
just running the
It's the
screw thread back out again, and then you can take it off. So you can really just add it and take it off as you go. You know, it's really
Yeah,
nice.
but you still
So
have the battery
that's
grip on it. You don't have any
1D.
the battery grip.
1D. That's what it is. The 1D something.
So the new
There's no
Blackmagic
room
Pocket
for
Cinema
rails.
Camera 6K Pro we priced at $2,495,
$2,400.
and it's in stock and it's available now.
What?
The
How much is that?
Blackmagic
Maybe I will
Pocket
buy
Cinema
one.
Camera Pro EVF will be priced at $495,
I thought
and that's also
that
available
came
now.
with
It's
it.
in stock.
No, the EVF.
And the
is
Blackmagic Pocket
extra.
Camera Battery
So
Pro
what
Grip
comes with it?
is
Nothing.
priced at $145, and that's also
Well,
available
that's got-
now. Now the battery grip is sold without
The
the
screen?
batteries because these
How much did you say
NT
that was?
F570 batteries, you can get them
35?
anywhere.
So it's
So you can
1,000 less.
source those
It's because
yourself.
they're replacing the 4K.
So we think the
I guess.
Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K
Oh,
Pro
nice.
is a really great addition to the family. You see we have 3 great cameras depending on the kind of work you're doing. They're all professional digital film cameras. They can be used for all kinds of work, and they're very, very portable.
Which
So
is the
it's
same
they're
sensor,
amazing.
though.
So one
Which
last
is-
thing we have just before we go, we also have a software update that's due. It's not quite ready yet, but it's
Wait.
coming soon. So what we're doing is one of the things I didn't show you on the back is we have new software for the 4K and the 6K Pocket Cinema cameras. Now all the cameras get a new RGB histogram. So the current luminance only histogram doesn't always show you clipped images. If you clip it in a single color, sometimes you can't tell because it's not clipping in the luminance. So the new RGB histogram fixes that. And so that's really nice. So if I turn on the
All I heard was maybe
4K camera
Instagram.
here, you can see,
Instagram.
we get a bit of
Uh-oh.
a close-up. You can see that's the RGB histogram there. And I've probably not got a lot of really
Is the
good things
screen
pointed
bigger on
out
the
to
6K?
show
I think
you
it
that
is.
working
Or the
properly.
Pro?
But you can see it there. I'll just stop
Yeah,
moving
they
the camera
shrunk
so you
it
can
to
see
add
it.
the
Let me get a good view of that there.
swivel ability.
So that RGB histogram is much nicer, and there it is on the 4K model, and all the models will get that new histogram when the software update goes out. So I'll place it back in line there. So that's really nice. Plus, the other great thing is we're upgrading all the color science in all the models. So both the 4K and the 6K models will get the new Generation 5 color science. So all the models will have the latest color science from actually the 12K camera research that we've been doing. So it's really exciting. Now that software update will be free. It supports the Blackmagic Pocket Camera 4K, the 6K, and it'll upgrade the new 6K Pro as well. It's called Camera Update 7.3, and it'll be available in about a month or so. So we're still doing a lot of debugging. Obviously with COVID, it's a bit tough to get things through QA because everyone's everywhere.
7.3.
Every 5 minutes there's some other breakout. So we're working as hard as we can to get that out the door, and that'll be a free update.
Yeah.
So that's about all we have for today. So I think we've got some really nice switches with the new Atem Mini Extremes. They're very powerful. We have an amazing professional cinema camera with the new Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. It's so small when you consider how much we've actually built into it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
We have an amazing
and
streaming solution with
the
this
4K
new
can live in my
Blackmagic
car.
Web Presenter HD. It's the
True.
broadcast transmitter for the streaming world. So I think it's really nice. And I've got to thank all the engineers who've worked so hard on these new products at Blackmagic. There's engineers all over the world, and everyone's come together and worked really hard. It's tough with COVID but everyone's done an amazing job. And again, thanks for all you guys for all your feedback. It's always great working together. It's an exciting industry, and we just love being
So
part
it's
of
a
it.
Super 35 sensor.
Yeah.
I'm getting older, and it's been, been
Yeah.
doing it for a
It's
long
exactly
time.
the
It's
same
great
sensor,
to
just upgraded.
just keep
color
bringing out
science.
more and
Yeah,
more new products.
mount.
It's really exciting.
New Sony battery.
When we work together, there's no
Flippy
limit on what we
screen.
can do,
Tilty
and there's no
screen,
limit
not
to what's
flippy.
possible. So again, please remain safe, and hope it won't be too much longer. We'll be back at trade shows talking again. I love talking as these videos get rather long. So take care, and we'll talk soon, and take care. Bye.
Maybe tomorrow we'll do a short reaction video. Now we know the specs.
Deal.
Because we gotta get back to work. Yeah, that looks terrible.
And I have to watch.
Oh, yeah, so
I
you can-
fixed it. I
No, I
tilted
know.
it more.
Yeah. We should tilt the yellow one so it's.
Oh no, I like the unevenness.
Oh, of course you do.
So maybe we'll do a reaction video tomorrow when I actually
Understand what.
hear the
Yeah.
announcement.
No, that was interesting. That was kind of fun to hang out with a couple people and whatever. But no, I mean, that's okay. Just overall, the price saved it for me.
That it's cheaper.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have been very disappointed.
They flashed the other prices too fast. So this one is 2,500 for the new one.
Yes, the 6K is like 1,700.
It was 1,250 for the 4K.
4K is 1250, which is that's always been like ridiculously cheap.
That's insane.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Clickety click. End.